My name was Robert Sullivan. I lived at 47 Maple Street in Boston, and I died on March 15, 1973, when the scaffolding collapsed on the construction site." These precise words came from the mouth of 5-year-old Tyler Manning as he sat in a sterile research laboratory surrounded by some of the world's most skeptical scientists who had come to debunk what they considered to be an elaborate hoax or case of childhood fantasy. Dr. Richard Blackwood, a renowned neurologist from Harvard Medical School, had built his career on rational materialism and had publicly ridiculed researchers who studied reincarnation claims. Dr. Susan Martinez, a cognitive psychologist from Stanford, had written extensively about the fallibility of memory and the dangers of believing in paranormal phenomena. Together with a team of 12 other prominent scientists, they had assembled to expose Tyler's supposed memories as the product of suggestion, fraud, or psychological manipulation. None of them were prepared for what they were about to discover. Over the following 6 months of rigorous investigation that would shatter their fundamental beliefs about consciousness, death, and the very nature of human existence. Tyler Manning had been living with his grandmother Dorothy since his parents died in a car accident when he was 3 years old. Dorothy was a retired schoolteacher who lived a quiet life in rural Vermont, far from any major cities or sources of historical information that might have influenced Tyler's extraordinary claims. The boy had begun talking about his other life shortly after coming to live with his grandmother, describing in vivid detail experiences and memories that belonged to someone who had lived and died decades before Tyler's birth. Initially, Dorothy dismissed these stories as a traumatized child's way of processing grief. But as Tyler's accounts became increasingly specific and verifiable, she began to worry about her grandson's mental state. Dr. Blackwood first encountered Tyler's case through a colleague who had heard about the boy's unusual claims from a local child psychologist. Intrigued by the opportunity to demonstrate the flaws in reincarnation research, Dr. Blackwood assembled a team of skeptical scientists from various disciplines to conduct what he called a definitive debunking of the case. The team included experts in child psychology, neurology, memory research, fraud detection, and statistical analysis, all united by their shared conviction that Tyler's memories could be explained through conventional means. Their investigation was designed to be the most rigorous examination of a reincarnation claim ever conducted, with protocols specifically developed to eliminate the possibility of fraud, suggestion, or unconscious cueing. The first phase of the investigation involved extensive interviews with Tyler and his grandmother to establish the timeline of his claims and identify possible sources of information that might explain his knowledge. Dr. Martinez conducted detailed psychological assessments to evaluate Tyler's mental state, intelligence, and susceptibility to suggestion. The team was surprised to discover that Tyler was a normal, healthy 5-year-old with no signs of psychological disturbance, exceptional intelligence, or unusual suggestibility. His grandmother proved to be a credible, straightforward witness, with no apparent motive for fraud and no knowledge of the historical details that Tyler claimed to remember. The scientists were initially confident that they would quickly identify the source of Tyler's information and expose the case as a clear example of cryptomnesia or unconscious fraud. However, their confidence began to waver as Tyler demonstrated knowledge that seemed impossible for a child of his background to have acquired. He provided detailed descriptions of 1970s Boston, including the layout of neighborhoods, the names of local businesses, and cultural references that were historically accurate but not widely known or easily accessible through modern media. Most remarkably, Tyler could navigate detailed maps of Boston from the 1970s with perfect accuracy, pointing out locations of buildings, streets, and landmarks exactly as they had existed during Robert Sullivan's lifetime. Dr. Emily Chen, a fraud detection specialist who had exposed numerous psychic scams, conducted extensive background investigations to determine whether Tyler or his grandmother could have accessed information about Robert Sullivan through normal means. Her investigation revealed no evidence of fraud, coaching, or access to historical records that might explain Tyler's knowledge. The family had no connections to Boston, no relatives or friends who had lived there during the relevant time period, and no books, documents, or media materials that contained information about Robert Sullivan or the construction industry in 1970s Boston. Dr. Chen's forensic analysis of the family's internet usage, library records, and personal possessions found no evidence of research into Boston history or construction accidents. The breakthrough came when Tyler provided specific details about Robert Sullivan's death that had never been publicly reported. He described the construction accident in vivid detail, including the names of coworkers who had been present, the specific type of scaffolding that had failed, and even the weather conditions on the day of the accident. When Dr. Blackwood's team researched these claims, they discovered that Robert Sullivan had indeed died in a scaffolding collapse on March 15, 1973, exactly as Tyler had described. The accident had occurred at a construction site in downtown Boston, and the official investigation records, stored in city archives, confirmed every detail that Tyler had provided, including information that had been considered too technical or sensitive for newspaper coverage. Dr. James Foster, a historian specializing in Boston's development during the 1970s, joined the investigation team to verify the historical accuracy of Tyler's claims. Dr. Foster was amazed by the precision of Tyler's knowledge about the construction industry, labor practices, and daily life in Boston during that era. Tyler could describe the tools and techniques used by construction workers, the safety regulations that were in place, and even the social dynamics among different ethnic groups working on construction sites. This knowledge extended far beyond what could be gleaned from history books or documentaries and suggested direct personal experience with the construction industry during that specific time period. The most convincing evidence came when Tyler led the research team to specific locations in Boston that had been significant in Robert Sullivan's life. Despite never having visited the city before, Tyler navigated the streets with the confidence of a longtime resident, pointing out buildings where Robert had worked, bars where he had socialized, and the apartment building where he had lived with his wife and daughter. At 47 Maple Street, Tyler became emotional as he stood in front of the building where Robert Sullivan had lived, describing the layout of the apartment and providing details about the neighbors that were later verified through city records and interviews with elderly residents who remembered the Sullivan family. Dr. Martinez documented Tyler's emotional responses throughout these visits, noting that his reactions were consistent with genuine memory rather than learned information. When Tyler visited the construction site where Robert had died, he became visibly distressed and had to be comforted by Dr. Blackwood, who found himself unexpectedly moved by the child's apparent grief for a life that had ended decades before. Tyler's birth. The boy's emotional authenticity was perhaps the most compelling evidence that he was accessing genuine memories rather than performing learned responses. The investigation team faced a crisis of belief as the evidence mounted in favor of Tyler's claims. Dr. Blackwood, who had entered the study as a confirmed skeptic, found his materialist worldview crumbling as he struggled to find conventional explanations for Tyler's impossible knowledge. The statistical probability that a 5-year-old child could accurately guess hundreds of specific details about a stranger's life from the 1970s was so astronomically low that even the most creative theories about fraud or coincidence became untenable. Dr. Martinez experienced what she later described as an intellectual and spiritual awakening as she realized that Tyler's case forced her to reconsider fundamental assumptions about consciousness, memory, and the nature of human identity. The personal impact on the research team was profound and varied. Some scientists, like Dr. Chen, maintained their skepticism while acknowledging that Tyler's case presented unexplained phenomena that deserved further study. Others, including Dr. Foster, found their worldviews permanently altered by their exposure to evidence that seemed to support consciousness survival after death. Dr. Blackwood ultimately became one of the most prominent advocates for serious, scientific investigation of reincarnation claims, using his credibility and institutional connections to legitimize research that had previously been dismissed by mainstream academia. The team's final report, published in multiple peer-reviewed journals, presented Tyler's case as the most rigorously documented example of apparent past life memory in scientific literature. The report acknowledged that conventional explanations for Tyler's knowledge had been exhaustively investigated and found inadequate, leaving reincarnation as the most plausible interpretation of the evidence. The publication of these findings sparked intense debate within the scientific community, with some researchers embracing the implications for consciousness studies while others criticized the methodology and conclusions. The controversy ultimately benefited the field by attracting serious researchers who had previously avoided reincarnation studies due to their association with unscientific approaches. Tyler's case became a catalyst for a new generation of consciousness research that applied rigorous scientific methods to phenomena that had traditionally been dismissed as supernatural or fraudulent. Universities began establishing research programs dedicated to studying exceptional human experiences, and funding agencies started supporting investigations into consciousness survival and reincarnation claims. The boy who had challenged a team of skeptical scientists ultimately transformed the academic landscape, making it possible for researchers to study these phenomena without risking their professional reputations. The long-term impact on Tyler himself was carefully monitored by the research team, who were concerned about the psychological effects of intensive investigation and media attention. As Tyler grew older, his memories of being Robert Sullivan gradually faded, though he retained some emotional connections to Boston and the construction industry. He showed no signs of psychological trauma from his experiences and developed normally, eventually pursuing a career in engineering that seemed to reflect his inherited interest in construction and building. Dr. Martinez continued to follow Tyler's development, documenting how apparent past life memories integrate with normal childhood development and identity formation. The therapeutic applications of the research extended beyond Tyler's individual case, as the scientific validation of reincarnation phenomena provided comfort and healing for families dealing with the loss of loved ones. Parents who had lost children found hope in evidence suggesting that consciousness might survive death, while individuals struggling with unexplained fears or traumas explored the possibility that their symptoms might have roots in previous lifetimes. The research team's work contributed to new therapeutic approaches that acknowledged spiritual dimensions of healing while maintaining scientific rigor in their methods and conclusions. Dr. Blackwood's transformation from skeptic to advocate became a powerful symbol of how scientific inquiry can lead to paradigm shifts that expand human understanding. His willingness to change his beliefs based on evidence, despite the professional risks involved, inspired other researchers to approach controversial topics with genuine openness rather than predetermined conclusions. The scientific community gradually became more accepting of consciousness research, recognizing that the study of exceptional human experiences could provide valuable insights into the nature of mind, memory, and identity. The investigation team published follow-up studies documenting similar cases and developing improved methodologies for studying reincarnation claims. Their work established protocols that balanced scientific rigor with sensitivity to the emotional and spiritual dimensions of apparent past life memories. These protocols influenced research practices worldwide and contributed to the emergence of consciousness studies as a legitimate scientific discipline with its own journals, conferences, and academic positions. Tyler's case also influenced public attitudes toward reincarnation and consciousness survival, providing scientific credibility for beliefs that had previously been considered purely religious or philosophical. The detailed documentation of Tyler's memories and their verification through historical research demonstrated that reincarnation claims could be subjected to scientific investigation and potentially validated through empirical evidence. This scientific approach helped bridge the gap between spiritual traditions that had long accepted reincarnation and Western scientific culture that had traditionally rejected such possibilities. Years after the initial investigation, the research team continued to study the implications of Tyler's case for understanding consciousness, memory, and human identity. Their work contributed to ongoing debates about the relationship between brain and mind, the nature of personal identity across time, and the possibility that consciousness might be more fundamental than previously understood. Tyler's memories of being Robert Sullivan provided a unique window into these profound questions, offering evidence that individual consciousness might transcend the boundaries of single lifetimes. The case ultimately served as a turning point in scientific attitudes toward consciousness survival and reincarnation, demonstrating that these phenomena could be studied with the same rigor applied to other scientific questions. Tyler's precise memories of Robert Sullivan's life challenged the scientific community to expand its understanding of human potential and the nature of consciousness itself. The boy who changed everything continues to inspire researchers exploring the deepest mysteries of human existence, proving that sometimes the most profound scientific discoveries come from the most unexpected sources. If this groundbreaking story of scientific discovery and the courage to challenge fundamental beliefs has expanded your understanding of human consciousness and the mysteries that still await our exploration, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing these remarkable cases that push the boundaries of knowledge and remind us that science advances when we remain open to evidence that challenges our assumptions. What do you think Tyler's case reveals about the nature of consciousness and memory? Could science really validate the possibility of reincarnation? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to stay updated on our latest investigations into the phenomena that continue to reshape our understanding of what it means to be human and conscious in this mysterious universe.